the Sony a7S III has finally arrived. After many years of anticipation, it has finally come. Full frame 4K at up to 120 frames per second, all 10-bit internal recording with IBIS, flip screen, incredible new battery system, new advanced color science, and crazy high ISO performance. But is it the perfect camera? Maybe for some people. But for all of us, it's really just another tool. So we've decided to compare the a7S III with some of the top Hollywood production cinema cameras on the market right now. The Arri ALEXA LF and Sony's very own VENICE 6K full frame camera. Both of these cameras are well over $60,000 each, and the lenses that we paired with each of these cinema cameras is well over $20,000 as well. So get ready for this epic comparison. Can the Sony a7S III hold its own against these Hollywood cinema powerhouses? Let's find out. This episode brought to you by Squarespace. Let's get started first with the Alexa LF versus the a7S III. I'm gonna put one camera on the left and one camera on the right, and I want you guys to comment down below with which one you actually prefer in this comparison. And then I'll reveal which one is which later. So, cut to the footage. Are you ready for the big reveal? Camera number one was the Alexa Mini LF, and camera number two was the Sony a7S III. We shot both cameras in their native log formats. a7S III was on the S-Log3 profile, and the Alexa was in the Arri C profile. And I used both of the Rec. 709 LUTs from each manufacturer, as well as do my own color correction to get each image as perfect as possible. Now overall, I was very impressed with how the a7S performed, but in this shot here, you can really see where the color issues are starting to happen. Sony's are known for having a magenta shift issue, and it seems to still be present in this S-Log3 mode. I kept having problems trying to fix my color tone in the shirt here, but every single time I would pull the magenta out, it would completely mess up my skin tones. So I ended up landing on this color grade to have proper skin tones, but my shirt doesn't look correct. Again, here with Tway, you can see in his hair the difference between the color shifting going on, and you can always kind of see a little bit of a magenta hue in the a7S footage. I still think, however, the a7S III is punching well beyond his weight class here. The next comparison we're going to do is with the a7S III and the Sony VENICE 6K full frame camera. Now this comparison is interesting to me because I think there's actually going to be cinematographers out there using the a7S III in this setting. Obviously not mounting the a7S III on top of a VENICE, but using an a7S III with the VENICE 6K as a crash cam or additional camera. Because both cameras are made by Sony, both have an S-Log3 function, both have the ability to shoot raw video, and when the room rumors were floating around about the a7S III, there were a lot of people speculating that it was going to have Venice color science in it. That has turned out to not necessarily be the case. However, I am interested to see how each S-Log holds up against itself. We shot the Venice at full resolution 6K S-Log 3, and we shot the a7S III in S-Log 3 as well in 10-bit internal. So without any further ado, let's roll the tape. Do we still use tape anymore? Tway? Ready for the big reveal on this one? Camera number 1 is the Sony a7S III, and camera number 2 is the Sony Venice full-frame 6K camera. And this comparison, as I expected, was more interesting to me than the Alexa, but I was curious to see if Sony's own Venice and a7S line would match up, and it seemed to be the case. Now, there again were multiple times where I was dealing with magenta issues with the a7S where the Venice just wasn't having that issue, but I was absolutely able to match the color of both of these cameras much more easily than with the Alexa. There were multiple shots like this one where you could tell that our aperture settings weren't exactly the same, and I didn't mention this in the previous segment with the Alexa, but we were using different lenses. I was using the 24-70 2.8 G Master lens on the Sony a7S III, and I was using the Zeiss Supreme Primes on the cinema cameras. Now obviously having better optics on your cinema cameras is going to give you a better overall image, but like I said previously, the a7S III absolutely swings well beyond its weight class here, especially with the Venice camera. I would not be afraid to mix and match these two cameras on a professional shoot. Now the last test that I did on my paper here, you can see that I wrote it very clearly in invisible ink, is the ISO test. The a7S line of cameras from Sony has been one of the best low light performers really ever out there. I think not just in the hybrid world, but in the professional lineup as well. I was really curious to see the noise performance of the Alexa LF, which is touted as having, you know, a higher ISO than other Alexas in the past. It's a full frame sensor, so it's going to have more low light capabilities, but has it actually stack up to a low light beast like the a7S III?
Roll that ISO clip.
Now, unlike the other comparisons, in this test, we used the exact same lenses on every camera. And at this point, we've already maxed out on the Arri Alexa. This is the maximum ISO for the Venice. And now, the ridiculousness that is the a7S III. what DP says. Let's crank it to 51,000. How about 80,000? $102,000 ISO. And this is it compared to the maximum setting on the Alexa at 3,200. 160. 256,000 ISO. And the maximum ISO for the a7S III, 409,600 ISO. This is truly remarkable and one of a kind for a camera at this price point. You know, one of the things that really amazes me is that we're living in this golden age of cameras, just like the golden age of websites. Squarespace knows about this golden age, and that's why they decided to make Squarespace. Squarespace.com/Indy Mogul. Let's say you're a big fan of Ted Sim, for example, our very own Ted, and you want to make the most epic fan page of Ted. So you decide to get, what is it, TedSimFanpage.com. I bet that domain's available right now. Just making this up off the top of my head, but I bet it's there because Squarespace is awesome. You build that site, you put a face of Ted right there, smack dab in the middle, and you decide, you know what, I want a whole section of photos of Ted wearing glasses. We got that. We got glasses, Ted. Go to TedSimFanpage.com/glasses, and boom, every single image that you would ever want of Ted Sim wearing glasses is there. Let's say you want Ted being all like that. We got that too. The section is right there next to the glasses section. This is all possible because of Squarespace.com/Indy Mogul. And if you're a fan of Indy Mogul and a fan of Ted Sim, then do us a favor and click that link down below, the very first link, in fact, and you can save 10% off your first purchase of Squarespace. Build that fan page, that domain is there. So we'd like to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. The golden age of websites has come, and it's because of Squarespace.com/Indy Mogul. Also the golden age of cameras, which brings me back to my final concluding thoughts on this video. The a7S III is by no means like an Alexa or a Venice, let's just be honest. But the image quality that you can get off of this camera now is so good, and we've honestly kind of arrived now at this point in these last couple months with all these cameras, both the S5, the R5, and R6. I said both, but I meant thrice, or whatever, those three things. Plus, Sony even releasing the a7SIII, which is a more affordable version of all these. The a7S III is in that category of these high-end cinema cameras. In fact, right now we're shooting on the X-T4 in 10-bit 4K. It's gotten to a point now where if you're an indie filmmaker and you've only got a couple $1,000s, you can get a fully rigged out cinema machine using something like the a7S III or the Fuji X-T4. It really just comes down to your preference, what you like more than others. I personally think the Sony a7S III has everything that I would ever want: the amazing autofocus features, the crazy low light capabilities, and the advanced color science that in my eye looks better than what I've seen from the previous versions of the a7S. But does it compare to an Alexa? No, of course not. That's not what we're trying to say. We're not trying to say replace your Alexa with an a7S III. If you're in the Alexa marketplace and you're shooting commercials, music videos, and films, then yeah, use an Alexa. That's the right tool for that job. But hopefully what this video showed you guys is the a7S III now, as a hybrid camera, internally by the way, everything we shot was internal, can hold up on a big screen in a Hollywood environment with these crazy Hollywood cameras like the Venice 6K and the Alexa. And if you're a DP shooting on a Venice, maybe you could get away with shooting on an a7S III now internally 10-bit 4K as a crash cam or as a B or C camera. In fact, why not put a camera on top like we did and have like a wide and a tight? Your Venice is your tight angle and then your wide is on top. I know, that's probably really dumb, and it looks kind of ridiculous walking around LA having that rig. This is absolutely the best way to hold this thing. But it is possible now, and these cameras have gotten so small and so much more affordable, there's really no excuse anymore to not make great stuff You can use anything, even your iPhone can get away with creating great content these days. So what are your thoughts on this comparison video and your thoughts on the a7S III? Do you want to see more content on the a7S III? If you're interested in seeing a full review of that camera, comment down below and let me know. We still have one on pre-order. We had to unfortunately send ours back to Sony because it was just a loaner. So if you're interested in seeing more of that content, comment down below and make sure to subscribe and enable that bell notification so that you can see when that comes out. Also, are there other cameras you want us to see next to the Alexa or the Venice camera? Let me know down below. Once again, I'm your host, Dave Mays. This is Indy Mogul, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Cut the tape. We'd like to thank On the Mark Rental House here in Burbank, California for letting us borrow the Venice and the Arri Alexa cameras along with the Supreme Prime lenses. This kit altogether was well over $200,000. So this is way out of most people's price ranges, and we are very fortunate to have On the Mark kind of help us out with this video. So if you're in the LA area and you ever need to rent anything, go over to On the Mark. They have incredible stuff, everything you could ever imagine, all the way down to DSLRs to high-end Hollywood production stuff. So check them out.